preparing. I almost put us on Facebook, but we're now in the right place. It's setting us up. You should be getting a notification on your screen. I think you are. I hit got it. Everybody's in. And now that we're live streaming, I am going to hand this over to Jesse. Where are you? Jesse, can you go so I could go visible so I could see you?
Morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning. I'm actually going to give it to Jesse Foley. Sorry, I wasn't specific.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. You were thinking, what am I going to do once you go over to me? Okay. Here you go, Jesse Foley. You're now the host, so you're going to watch the waiting room. And you come back over here. Okay. Now I think we're technologically caught up. And we also, you'll see on the bottom, I think you should see that we're closed captioned for anybody watching on YouTube, and I think for anybody in the meeting, if you see that. Okay. Good morning and welcome to today's hearing of the Joint Committee on Public Service. I'm Representative Kenneth Gordon, and I'm joined here by my co-chair and colleague, Senator Michael Brady. Welcome, Senator. Do you have any opening remarks you'd like to share? Chair Brady? Chair Brady, if you'd like to go visible. Okay, you may be tied up for a moment. I will come back to you as soon as I see you. Today, the subject of our bills is civil service, pension reform, and veterans bills. We have 51 bills before us to consider. We've solicited testimony in each of these bills, including both written and oral testimony. And oral testimony is being heard this morning. If members of the public would like to provide additional written testimony after this hearing, they may do so for 1 week until Tuesday, October 5th. So what we're going to do is leave these bills open for a week. We'll talk about that as we close. If you've testified to sign up verbally, you should have received the link. Well, if you didn't receive the link, you wouldn't be here. So, we'll recognize you in the order that you signed up. I'd like to thank all of you for your patience today as we work our way through the Zoom platform. I'd like to introduce members of the committee from the House of Representatives. Representative Whalen, our ranking member, is here. Representative Kushmerek, Representative Eiderhoven, Representative DeCoste, Representative Dom, I see you, but I think you're here to testify, right? Okay. All right, we'll call on you as we get there. Now, Representative Whalen, I understand you would like to provide some testimony about a bill that you filed.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. Through you to the members, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to House Bill number 2795, which I filed. This bill, what it aims to do is it aims to amend Chapter 31, Section 26, which deals with hiring preferences for the dependent children of police officers and firefighters who are killed in the line of duty. As it's written now in the 7th paragraph, it states that if a firefighter, the child of a firefighter who is killed in the line of duty while responding to an alarm or fire, or while at the scene of a fire, if they sustain injuries which result in their death, rightly so, that dependent child, if they pass the test, they go right to the top of the list for civil service hiring. However, if it's a police officer, what it states is that in the case of a police officer, it's only when in the performance of their duties and as the result of an assault on the officer's person was killed or sustained injuries. It leaves out the section there that the firefighters rightly have, which states that if they're operating a vehicle, and what it does is, what my bill aims to do is to include that if they're operating a department vehicle, for that to apply to police officers as well. Mr. Chairman, I view this as kind of a softball pitch because I can think specifically of one trooper who I worked with, Vinny Silla, who was killed in a motorcycle crash a number of years ago in the Ted Williams Tunnel. And his daughter had to fight for years to get onto the state police. If Vinny was killed by the assault of another individual, she would have gotten that automatic preference. She did not enjoy it. However, if Vinny was a firefighter, he would have. All that we're looking to do is to allow police officers the same parity for their children in hiring if end up making the ultimate sacrifice that the firefighters right now very much rightly enjoy. I hope this bill is passed by this committee for further consideration. I appreciate your time. I'm also available for any questions if any of the members have.
Thank you, Representative Whalen. I appreciate that. And I know you said that you were submitting written testimony as well. So that is, as you know, welcome. Senator Brady has, I know you're working through some technical issues, but you're here now. And both, would you like to make some opening remarks? And then do you have any questions of Rep. Whalen?
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. No, I just thank you for your testimony and the written testimony you're sending in, Representative Whalen.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Representative Whalen. I appreciate your testimony. Does anybody from the committee have any questions?
Mr. Chair, I would just speak briefly, if I may, and through you to the members, and thank you for the opportunity. I think this is probably one of the first conversations that Representative Whalen and I had in terms of modifying and improving civil service. We are under, as you know, many attempts to dilute veterans' preference and modify civil service, which most of which I oppose. But I can tell you, in this case, Rep. Whalen and I have heard no opposition to what we're trying to do here in terms of protecting those children of men and women who have fallen and given the ultimate sacrifice while serving as firefighters, as police officers. So I hope that we can codify these changes and move this out of committee favorably and expeditiously. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative DeCoste. Thank you. And just a brief statement is concurrent to this hearing at this time. Certain members of the committee are serving on a special commission to study modifications, changes, or ways to address the civil service laws here in the Commonwealth. Senator Brady and I chair that study commission, and Rep. Whalen serves on it. So we're continuing to look at ways that we can address this system to make it work for everybody. So, and thank you for the question, the comment, and thank you for addressing the topic. With that, are there any other questions from any committee members? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to Representative Dom. You're testifying about H 2621.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Good morning to you, to Chair Brady, and the members of the Joint Committee on Public Service. I hope you can hear me okay.
We can.
Great, thank you. I am here to express support for a bill that I'm very proud to have filed in the House, H 2621, and actually extend veterans retirement buyback opportunities. I'm proud to support this legislation and honor our Commonwealth's veterans by strengthening their retirement and recognizing that their public service includes both their military service and their civil service, and that both forms of service should be viewed similarly when it comes to concerning their retirement benefits. The Veteran Buyback Program, in my understanding, is a step in the right direction where it provides resources to veterans for their retirements. However, the current program in Massachusetts limits the retirement buybacks to up to 4 years that they can add to their years of civil service and increase their retirement funds. This isn't enough. We can do more. With the current program in place, many who served in the military may find themselves hesitant to retire. This legislation before you will provide veterans with more financial security by allowing them to buy back 10 years of active service. And by extending the retirement buyback opportunities for veterans, those in older ages will be able to boost their retirement savings and retire earlier if wanted with confidence, decreasing the economic consequences that they might otherwise face, which economic insecurity is a significant issue for older veterans. The legislation also increases the credit for National Guard service. And as we've witnessed during the pandemic particularly, but also just during a lot of emergencies throughout the country, the Guard does show up all the time, whether it's to help fight fires, protect the Capitol, drive school buses to get our kids to schools. And certainly their service can also be recognized through these efforts. Extending the buyback programs for veterans expresses our investment in their secure retirements and our gratitude for their public service. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with you today, and I would urge a favorable report for this legislation. Thank you. I'm sorry, I can't hear you, sir.
I'm the one usually saying you're on mute. I apologize for that. Sorry about that. Thank you for your work on the topic. And certainly we need to do all that we can to make to support our veterans and make life easier for them. And I think you're aware that the current veterans buyback program does give a limited amount of time for the veterans to exercise their rights to do the buyback once they become employed publicly. Yours would that remove that altogether?
I don't think it would, but that's actually something that we should look at, because I would encourage us to remove a deadline by which they could buy back. You know, you might not, when you go into civil service, you might, I think this is what you're referring to, you might not automatically think, well, I'm going to kind of bring that to bear. That may be a decision that you end up making as you get closer to thinking about being retired, I would think.
Yeah, I ask you that because your bill and the presentation you just provided, I think anticipates people who are now getting close to retirement age, who now want to decide to
Right.
increase to their years by buying back. And so if we do that, has there been any work done to determine from an sort of mathematically or actuarially, if someone is that close to the retirement and then drawing a pension, how that would affect the system? In other words, what would that cost?
What would it cost? I'm not sure about the if the reports have been done, sir, but I can definitely look into it and get back to you. When I submit my written testimony, I'll include information about that.
Yeah, I would be interested to know if a veteran has the opportunity to buy back. If the question of at what cost, I just want to know, would want to know how, the math, how that math would work.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Okay. Chair Brady, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair, and thank you, Representative, for your testimony. And I appreciate if you can get that other information that the co-chair had requested. And we always want to support our veterans. Do we know how we compare with other states?
I know that
what we're doing?
I know that 2 other states actually have extended it up to 10 years, both New Jersey and Washington State. And I think actually, Mr. Chair, both chairs, I think that what we'll be able to do is, if Massachusetts hasn't done those sort of actuarial reports, we'll be able to look at New Jersey and Washington and see what has happened in those states. So we'll get back to you. I'll work with Senator Comerford, who's the senator co-filer on this, and we'll get you that information.
Great. Thank you very much, Representative.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from anyone on the committee?
Mr. Chair, again, I guess I try to limit but I actually briefed my allied Veterans Council, if you will, for the 3 towns that I represent, Norwell, Hanover, and Rockland. And I'd like to thank the representative from Amherst for filing this bill. This is long overdue. Shame on me for not co-sponsoring it. I just didn't see your invitation. But I think this is something you're absolutely correct that we've got to make sure it's on an actuarially sound basis. But again, this is long overdue. And I can tell you, I can speak as a life member of the VFW, DAV, and American Legion here. And I mentioned it to the head of one of those organizations. I hope that she's able to testify today. But I think I speak for the general veterans community, and that this would, number one, I think go a little bit along the lines of allowing some credit and some recognition, again, as the representative pointed out, for to account and for the Commonwealth to give some credit towards those veterans who've come back, and in many cases, from some very arduous service. So I thank the representative, and again, I hope this bill is looked at and expeditiously moved from committee. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I put you on a list of supporters, so you're on.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else have any questions for Representative Dom? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
The next legislator to testify is Senator Comerford, although I don't see you here. Does anyone? You're not here under a different name, right? All right, so when you come, I will call on you. The next witness on our list is Patrick Russell to testify about H 2792.
Good morning. Good morning, chairs, members of the committee. I'm here to speak about House Bill 2792, an act relative to timely retirement payments. This bill would address the auditor bumps audit that came out in January of 2021 said that only 3% of retirees on the Massachusetts retirement system get their payments in a timely manner. The law says that you should get your payment within 28 days. The average is 115 days. That's 4.5 times longer. This bill is designed to give members 90% of their projected retirement payment until all the calculations can be done, and then it will be rectified at that time. We recognize that there's a lot of moving parts and levers that have to get done before a calculation can be certified and the payments be able to be sent out. We feel like 90% is a good target to hit. We recognize that that the retirement system has a system in place for 50% payments for people through a debit card. But right now, only 2% of retirees use that system. And when we speak to our recently retired Moses members, they indicate that they don't know about this program or hadn't heard about it until well into 60-day mark. So the bill is pretty simple. 2 parts to it: pay 90% of the projected monthly payment and report out to the legislature on how well the system is doing at hitting the 28-day mark. Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. I would tell you, this reminds me of a case that came through New York that we studied 100 years ago when I was in law school. And we kind of had a bit of a robust discussion in class, and the points that you're making now, I remember, are consistent with a New York Supreme Court case. And so I hear what you're saying and really understand the significance of the issues that you're raising. So thank you for coming here and raising those topics. People should have the benefit of the revenue that they need while these decisions are being made. They depend on it. Senator Chair Brady, do you have questions?
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Just Mr. Russell, thank you for your testimony as well.
Thank you very much.
Members of the committee? Okay, seeing none, no questions. Thank you very much for your testimony. We're going to move on to Nancy McGovern, who's testifying on behalf of a number of bills.
Thank you, Chairman Gordon. We actually have a panel. Frank Valeri, our president of Mass Retirees, and Sean Duhamel, our CEO, they're also on with me. Frank's going to lead it off. Go ahead, Frank.
I think so. Can you hear me all right, Nancy and Mr. Chairman?
We can hear you.
Nice to see you, Mr. Chairman, albeit virtually. I like to be in person, but unfortunately, this is the only way I can get an opportunity to testify on behalf of a couple bills that we sponsored on your agenda today. And the first one I want to testify, it's good to see both you and Mr. Chairman Brady, albeit, like I said, virtually, but I know we have a number of bills on, so I'll try to be quick, but the gentleman before me spoke about an issue which I'm also going to speak about. It's another bill number, though. It's House 2748. It's filed by Chairman Parasella. And while Nancy indicated I'm the president of Mass Retirees, I also wear 2 hats. I'm your state representative on the State Retirement Board. I'm elected by the 90,000 active members and the 60,000 retirees. The system is one of the largest 2 in the Commonwealth, and the state system has evolved like no other system in the Commonwealth. And I'd like to explain two things: the intent of the bill, the reason why we're filing this bill, and the hope that this problem can be addressed through the provisions of this draft. First of all, the intent is to try to allow for, specifically clarify the statute and update the statute, which would allow for the payment of an estimated benefit. And we all know you can request an estimated benefit from the retirement board. This estimate can be paid. It's very general in language, and it's done for a reason. The language is on the statute now, I believe, was probably the original Section 13 of Chapter 32, which was written right after World War II in the 40s. So it hasn't been really updated. So the intent is to update this and specifically give the retirement board and direct the retirement board to pay an estimated benefit within the intent of the law. And if you read the statute, the intent of the law was you get paid your benefit no later than the following pay period. So if you apply, and I had a constituent call me from the state board just this week, who has a retirement date of July 9th and was told he's not going to get a benefit till October.
Hmm.
Well, the benefit is structured in the old statute was you get paid the following month after your retirement date. So on a July 9th retirement date, there's a lot of factors that go involved because there's a monthly payroll, and a monthly payroll ends at a certain time, obviously, at the end of the month, usually the third week of the month. So given the restrictions of having a one month payroll, it's very difficult to turn things over timely. Well, anyway, the statute was written was you had to pay it within the following month. This bill says you have to pay the estimate within the following month with the intentions of the board doing whatever it has to do and what it currently does now thoroughly in calculating benefits, and then make an adjustment a month or two or several months down the road if need be. As long as the member understands this is the process, we feel very strongly that this change will help the problem and address the problem that, as our prior speaker mentioned, there was a state audit released last year which cited this issue. There was also an internal audit done by the Treasury on the management of the entire state retirement board, and this was one of the priorities. So it's been cited twice. It's been something that I've been trying to focus on with the board, and it doesn't go without effort of the board. Now, the state board, you got to understand, not only because of its size, because of its complexity, it's evolved to this point in time to having pay people several months later or after retirement. And the reasons for it are real simple. First of all, like I said, there are 150,000 members in the system. We have group classification that no other system has. We have all group classifications. We have more disabilities than any system in the Commonwealth, 4 times the number of disabilities, which make it very complex and very burdensome administratively. Also, we have more Section 10 retirements. We have more buyback requests. We have more DALA requests. The system has a lot of complexities that have evolved since 1946. And it's time to recognize that we need some kind of flexibility and relief and to pay the members timely. I have more members complaining. It's probably the number one problem I hear from all of my elected members. Why does it take so long to get my first check? Frank, I can't afford to retire. These are the things that bother me. And, you contribute for your entire career, 9-10% of your gross pay. At the end of it, you have to find a way to retire, and that's not right. So we hope that the committee looks favorably on this measure. I think, the staff at the board has tried a number of different things to administratively relieve this. I know the treasurer has this as a priority. We've internally created a second payroll. Now there is a payroll being conducted bi-monthly. That's tried to address, but it seems like as we go on, and of course, a lot of this has to do
Sir,
with.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think the 3 minutes has long passed.
I'm
So if you
sorry.
could stop. I appreciate, wrap up. I appreciate it.
Sure.
And as I told the last witness, I really get the issue and I know why it's important. If someone is living paycheck to paycheck and they don't have a paycheck for several months and someone's going to be inconvenienced, I think
Correct.
that the retirement board can absorb the inconvenience a lot more significantly.
I agree wholeheartedly, and that's my message. I apologize for my lateness. Maybe I'm just pent up from not being able to testify in so long, Mr. Chairman. But thank you for the opportunity, and we hope that the committee sees favorably and tries to address the problem this way. I know
All right.
Sean Duhamel has other bills that he's
All right.
going to talk about.
Before we get to Sean, I need some advice from Cody. So you'll see that I'm visually mute. I've lost my all the controls on the bottom of I don't know if anyone else has experienced this. I think that I'm not the host, so I think I could probably leave and come right back. Although I don't even see the leave meeting.
Yes, I can see that.
Can Jesse Foley, you're the host. Can you I can hear everybody though.
I can try and turn or request that you turn your video back on.
Well, okay.
And we can hear you loud and clear, Mr. Co-Chairman.
Yeah, and I can hear you too. I just can't do things like, yeah, go back to, I can guess. I can guess at the control. How about this? This might be it. Yeah, there's nothing that I can see. I guessed that was where the turn video on was.
You're back.
Yeah, I can see that. And so I don't think I can, I think I can guess at mute too. Believe it or not, I've done enough of these now. All right, I think it's okay. I just don't have any controls, which I'm used to in my life, I guess. So then why don't, okay, so now go ahead, Mr. Duhamel. Sean, you were the next. Go ahead and I'll figure this out.
I'm going to defer to Nancy McGovern and she's going to go next, and then I'm going to wrap up.
Thank you, Chairman Gordon and Chairman Brady, members of the committee. I'm testifying in support of House Bill 2601, an act relative to contributory retirement board elections. At its core, Mass Retirees believes that surviving spouses are of paramount importance, deserving equal status within the ranks. These members are entitled to the same attention and services provided to their deceased spouse. In fact, Mass Retirees has been at the forefront of survivor legislation for over 52 years. And House Bill 2601 is just another example of our commitment. HB 2601 would extend the right to vote for the third and fourth elected members in retirement board elections if they are receiving a retirement allowance from one of the 104 retirement systems. Mass Retirees has always supported the fundamental principle that stakeholders should have a voice in the decisions impacting their retirement, including the election of those who sit on their retirement board. That principle is being applied once again with this legislation that has the distinction of being introduced for the first time by us and, to our knowledge, for the first time ever. We'd like to thank you in advance for your consideration of this bill. Sean.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be very brief. We have two pieces of legislation relative to veterans benefits. And similar to, as Nancy said, our commitment over the years to surviving spouses, we have also been very committed, right from our founding in 1968, to veterans and veterans' families. One of the bills that we have filed would increase the veterans bonus that was first created back in 1957. And at that point in time, the current benefit level of a maximum of $300 was put in place back in 1957. It's been 64 years since this benefit's been updated. And as you can imagine, if you apply inflationary factors to that $300, the actual dollar amount of what it should be today would be $2,900. We're not proposing to go that far, but we think after 64 years, it's about time that this be updated. It's a benefit that's automatically calculated as part of a retiree's pension when they retire. And it's been that way ever since 1957. The current benefit is $15 for each year of credible service, up to a maximum of $300 at 20 years of service. Our proposal would increase that benefit to $50 per year of credible service, up to a maximum benefit of $1,000 at 20 years. This is something that in the past, House Ways and Means. We're very hopeful that that could occur again this session, perhaps in time that it could be considered as part of the FY23 budget process. We have had conversations in the past with leadership of both the House and Senate on this. This is the second session we have filed this proposal, but we're very hopeful that we can have it addressed. A related bill filed by Senator Vilas. I should have said that the first legislation was co-filed by Senator Vilas as well as Chairman Paracella. The second bill is filed by Senator Vilas at Senate 1795. It updates the definition of veteran. So it would be the group of people that the bonus would be applied to. That definition was updated prospectively back in 2004. And our association and Ralph White at the time, our former president and our founder, played a key role in updating that definition. But as is the case with many items under Chapter 32, they tend to be prospective in nature. And we have quite a few of our members who are veterans. They retired previously to 2004, and they were not included in the new definition. And what this really seeks to get at, Mr. Chairman, is the fact that under Massachusetts retirement law, we have very specific definitions of who qualifies or who is classified as a veteran. Under the old definition, you had to have served during specific periods of time, so-called wartime service or during acts of conflict. The legislature saw fit to update that definition in 2004 to make it apply to anyone who honorably served in our armed forces, as well as National Guard members who were activated for at least 90 days during a period of war or conflict. And what we would like to see happen, Mr. Chairman, is that definition be applied to all retirees who are honorably discharged from our armed services and have it apply equally across the board. So we look at both of these pieces of legislation in tandem, but thank you so much for your time and your consideration. We're happy to take any questions on any of these bills.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you to the panelists. And your presentation was complete, and for that reason, I have no questions. Mr. Chair, do you have any questions, Chair Brady?
No, Sean, the other bill you were talking about was House Bill 2749, the first one you were talking about.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman, along with Senate 1794. 2749 is Chairman Paracella's bill, and the second is Chairman Velas's bill. They're mirrors of one another, though.
Okay. It does shock me that nothing's been upgraded since the late 50s. And as you mentioned, I don't know how anyone can survive the cost of living and everything else that's gone up since those days. So thank you all for your testimony. So Mr. Valeri and everyone else who testified today on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a question from anyone from the committee? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on. I'm not muting myself only because I'm not confident I can unmute myself with the screen issue, which is sort of coming up slowly, little by little. I'm getting some of the controls back. But anyway, the next witness on the list is Jesse Flynn.
Good morning, Chairman Gordon, Chairman Brady, other distinguished members of the Joint Committee. My name is Jesse Flynn. I'm the Assistant Adjutant and the Legislative Director with the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We're going to be providing some written testimony as well, because we're supporting many bills on this docket. We're strongly supporting 4 of them. One of them is, 2 of them are House 2749 and Senate 1794, which the Mass retirees just testified on. We strongly support those increases, and we do agree that it's long overdue to start addressing not just those benefits, but a lot of benefits that haven't been increased to allow for cost of living increases. I'd also like to just touch on 1793, Senate 1793. It's an act protecting veterans' preference and hiring practices. This bill will create parity between non-civil service departments and positions with departments under the umbrella of civil service. Under this bill, municipalities considering home rule petitions to revoke Mass General Law, Chapter 31, would fall under this veteran hiring policy, which mirrors Chapter 31, Section 26, which is the schedule of preferences. This will have a twofold effect. It will protect veterans from nepotism and patronage in non-civil service communities, and may also be an incentive for municipalities to forgo home rule petitions to revoke civil service due to the fact they will be obligated to adhere to the same veteran's preference, even if they revoke it. This bill will help local non-veteran residents and municipalities that are currently under civil service have a real chance of being hired to their local fire and police departments. For far too long, a small number of civil service departments have been hiring a disproportionate number of veterans to public safety positions. Compare this to non-civil service departments that don't hire as many. By spreading the veteran pool throughout the state, the whole Commonwealth, with statewide veterans preference, veterans will no longer need to move to civil service municipalities in order to be hired under Chapter 31. Veterans shouldn't have to migrate to civil service municipalities to receive preference for their service to our country. The DAVC Senate 1793 as one of the most comprehensive and strong veterans protections in the nation, and we request the committee report this bill favorably. And I also just want to touch on Senate 1670, and it's an act relative to National Guard service. This will amend the civil service preference order by inserting National Guard and Reserve members with a minimum of 2 years of service. The National Guard and Reserves are a diverse population. They are more diverse than their active duty counterparts. Creating this preference would help divert with diversity in public service, and will also assist the Mass National Guard with recruitment and retention. The Guard Reserve preference will not affect DAV veterans preference, as the Guard and Reserve members that meet the veteran standard would be able to utilize the veterans preference as it currently is in the schedule. I thank you for your time. I just also want to say we, as always, oppose House 3941 and 3911 that pulls positions and departments out of civil service. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Jesse. And I would point out that I mentioned the Civil Service Study Commission, and Jesse is a commissioner on that as well. I have no questions. Chair Brady, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. I just, as you mentioned, Mr. Flynn is on that other subcommittee we're dealing with, and there's been a lot of questions that have arisen in regards to what works with civil service and non-civil service, but we certainly want to protect our veterans as a major top priority. So thank you for your testimony on these bills.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? Okay. Thank you very much for your service, for your testimony, and for your service.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
Seeing none, we'll move on. And I don't know, because I can tell you that I've got a number of blank screens. Just Zoom is sort of crashing. I can hear everybody still. And to the extent that Senator Comerford is here on a blank screen, if you could go visible and tell me, I'll call on you, but I don't think you're here. And so we're going to go to the next name on the list, which is Edward Johnson. Edward Johnson
is, I'm here. I just unmuted.
Okay. I can see you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and I am speaking regarding Senate Bill 1702. My name is Edward Johnson. I live in Methuen. I joined the state police in 1972 and retired in 1992. While in the state police, I obtained my bachelor's degree from St. Anselm's College and my master's degree from Westfield State College, thereby qualifying for a 30% educational incentive under the Quinn Bill. During my career, I was promoted through competitive examination 5 times, rising through the ranks from trooper to corporal to sergeant, staff sergeant, lieutenant, and detective lieutenant, at which rank I retired. Around 1995, a law was passed which allowed, and I quote, increasing allowance of former state police officers retired after at least 20 years of service. This law directly affected those who gave 20 years of service to the Commonwealth and retired due to superannuation, close quotes, and retired before July 1st, 1992. The effect of this law set each individual's pension at no less than 50% of what his final rank is currently making on the state police. This law benefited some, but not all of those who were entitled to retire due to superannuation prior to July 1st, 1992. As such, a finite number of us have fallen greatly behind our peers as far as our pensions are concerned. At this point, I would like to relate what I call a tale of 3 pensioners. The first pensioner would be retired as a staff sergeant around 1991. He was promoted 3 times by examination during his time in the state police. His pension is approximately $79,000. Pensioner 2 retired as a trooper. He never sought promotion during his time in the state police. He retired after 2010. His pension is approximately $60,000. Pensioner 3 would be me. Retired as a detective lieutenant in 1992, promoted 5 times via examination, has the highest available incentive through the Quinn Bill. My pension is $44,000 a year. Since 1992, the state police salary has been greatly upgraded, which give present members of the state police and those that have fairly recently retired a salary whose base is of much greater value than our base was. Retiring at 60 to 75% of their base keeps them in the middle income bracket and away from financial distress. In our case, and I speak for myself on those that pension reform would directly and greatly affect, we're not granted the same pension benefits as our cohorts. I feel that this was an omission, causing a finite number of us to fall way behind in our benefits. While I'm not asking for anything retroactively, I am asking that this omission be corrected. The cost to the Commonwealth would be minimal, as this would only affect those state police officers who entered the State Police Academy prior to July 1st, 1972. And due to the natural deaths of these retirees due to old age, the cost of the Commonwealth would not increase over the next 20 years. It would dwindle until the last of us is dead. Thank you very much for allowing me to testify.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Do you know how many people would be affected if we were to pass this now?
The best that I could do by calling in some favors was I found out that between July 1st of 1992 and December 31st of 1994, 31 people retired, 6 of whom had expired as of maybe early this spring. And there would be other people who stayed on the job much longer and took advantage of the big pay raises that came through the Weld administration and also the Romney administration. They'd be able to retire at 75% of this larger base. So therefore, even though this would affect them, it wouldn't affect them financially because that 50% safety net wouldn't be hit. And I think by the time it was hit, if the state police continued to get pay raises, they'd probably be well in their 70s or 80s. So I'm going to say immediate effect, no more than 50 people. I think that's less than that.
I see that because, again, you just look at the year they would have retired. They've been retired for 30 or some odd years, right? So,
yes.
So yeah, that age range makes sense. Thank you for your testimony. Chair Brady,
Thank you.
questions?
No, I have no questions. I just want to thank you, sir, for your testimony as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any members of the committee? Thank you very much for your testimony.
If I could note that there will be some written testimony forthcoming from others.
That'd be great. Thank you. As I said in the beginning, we're keeping these hearings open for a week to collect that written testimony. So,
okay, thank you.
Thank you, and that's very important. So thank you for sending it. James McIsaac, you were here from the beginning. I'm sure you're still here. There you are.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having me today and for providing me with the opportunity to give testimony on this bill, House Bill H2663, which is a bill that would expand residential preference to communities that choose to people who graduated from high school and hold a high school diploma within the community. So here in Belmont, we have a very difficult time hiring through civil service. Last year, we had 5 candidates on a list. I had 4 openings. We ended up with none after trying to hire those 5 for a full year. This year, we have 6 candidates on a list, and I still have those 4 openings. So what we proposed, this came as a brainchild of a former captain of ours who retired a number of years ago. We continually get questioned about a lack of diversity within our department. And our captain was speaking to a former Metco student at Belmont High School. And he said, hey, how do I get to be a police officer in Belmont? And we said, well, basically you got to move to Belmont. You have to live there for a year. You have to take the test, hope you do well enough and get on the list. Well, he wasn't going to be able to move to Belmont. In fact, many young people that graduate from Belmont High, go to college, can't afford to live in Belmont. And that's one of the reasons why we have such a small list. So the next day, the captain came in. He said, hey, I have an idea. He said, why don't we propose a bill that will allow people who graduated from Belmont high schools in Belmont that have a diploma, that they get the residential preference that residents in Belmont get. So that's where we are today. I do want to emphasize this wouldn't infringe on veteran preference. That would remain the same. But along those same lines, I think it's been about 10 years since we had a veteran on the list. Again, communities like Belmont, upscale communities we don't have people in their 20s and early 30s renting in Belmont. So we are really up against it in trying to hire good quality candidates into law enforcement. And, I have 4 openings and 6 candidates. I don't know any other business that would hire a position so crucial as a police officer in this day and age and only have 6 candidates for 4 openings. So it's real important. This bill is important to us. We believe it'll expand our candidate pool and it'll allow communities like Belmont the opportunity to opt in, and they could hire our graduates. If you look at the civil service list, you'll see that it varies community to community. Places like Billerica, they have many more people on their list than we do in Belmont. They have veterans. They have probably about 28, 30 people on their list. We don't, and it's really causing a crisis here in our community. because we can't, and in my department, because I can not hire officers off the civil service list.
Thank you very much for your testimony. I can tell you, as you probably can see, this presenting sponsor on this House bill, that it is also important to me too. I live in Bedford, which is a Metco community. And I can tell you, similar to the story that you told from Belmont, I know Senator Brownsberger filed the Senate version of this and has this. It was MLK Day when a Metco student in Bedford said to our chief, Bobby Bongiorno, I would love to be a police officer in your town. And without a residency preference, this Boston student who went from K through 12 in Bedford in the public schools and considered Bedford to be as much the student's home as Boston. I think it's important that these students who can also have this connection, this anchor really to that community where they're educated, have the option of applying and qualifying for a job there in this way. And we talk about increasing diversity in these suburban towns, and this is really a direct way to do it. So this isn't a question, it's really that I think it is important. I think it is an important issue that we should be looking at. Chair Brady.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Chief, if I may, how is the residency requirement in Belmont? I know some of my towns that I represent do not have a residency requirement. It usually goes back to collective bargaining agreements. And the city of Brockton does have a residency requirement. And over my years as an elected official, it's gone back and forth. The voters voted it 2-1 the last time. And then through negotiations, they had like a year to move in. Now after 7 years, they can move outside of the city of Brockton after serving. And I know that it's very difficult, especially people coming out of college, the young age, they basically, it's very difficult to live anywhere in the Commonwealth. I mean, the housing costs have gone through the roof. But can you explain how the residency requirement works in Belmont? Is it 1 year, just for my own information wise?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. It's a little bit different than what you're talking about. So for civil service to receive the residential preference in civil service, you have to have had resided in Belmont for up to 1 year prior to the exam. Right. So if you live in Belmont and you get a 75 on the exam, and somebody that lives in Watertown happens to put Belmont down on their civil service application, their exam application, and they get a 95, the Belmont resident would be ahead of that Watertown resident. We give preference to Belmont residents first, veterans ahead of that, Belmont veterans ahead of that, and disabled veterans ahead of them. And so when we have a very small number of people in Belmont actually signing up to take the test. We had 15 last year, and of that 15, only 6 passed the exam. And so when I call for a list, I just call for a list. I get those 6 Belmont names, and then I get the veterans after that. And you know, the number 1 veteran after that is probably sitting number 1 on the Cambridge list. So they're more apt to go to Cambridge than to come to Belmont and come in and sign the list. The list has been out now for since last week, and we've only had those 6 Belmont people come in and sign the list that they're willing to take the job here.
And there's no requirement once they're on the department that they have to live in Belmont afterwards?
No, it's the requirement is 15 miles from Belmont.
Right.
Border to border.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions from anyone from the committee?
I just have a very quick question for the chief. I was just wondering, does this bill at all impact other cities that have, you know, residency requirements or preferences of the sort, or this is just specifically for, you know, opening up more opportunities?
It's for opening up more opportunities, and from what I understand is communities would opt into this bill. Like some communities opt into the upper age requirement of 32. Mm-hmm. And so it would be an opt-in component. I think would be great for communities like Belmont, as I mentioned, that don't have the young people in the community that are willing to take the exams. You know, we're an affluent community. I say this all the time. You know, a lot of people don't send their kids off to Bowdoin College hoping they come back to be a Belmont police officer. And so we just don't have that pool to take from.
Great, thank you, sir.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. And we are going to turn to
Thank you.
Paul. Thank you very much. Paul Jakes.
Hello, Rep. Gordon. Paul Jakes wasn't able to attend today, so I'm going to be representing the PFFM. My name's Craig Hardy, and I'm the legislative agent, if that's okay with you.
Of course.
Thank you, Chairman Gordon and Chairman Brady, and all members of the committee. I'd just like to speak on a bill, and we will be putting in our written testimony also, but Senate Bill 1739, sponsored by Senator Keenan, and House Bill 2665 by Rep. Gregoire, an act relative to residency. This is to have all fire departments and police departments be able to negotiate the residency limits of the 15 miles. Back in FY14, the Commonwealth changed this so that all civil service departments are able to negotiate this, but the intent was to have all departments and it just wasn't worded correctly. So we're looking at this as a house cleaning bill where, as I stated back in FY14, we did change it along with the legislature for it to be able to be negotiated for all civil service departments. What we're asking now, as you know, to have everyone be able to negotiate it. And just to be very clear, this isn't changing any of the rules and laws. It's just giving every union an opportunity to negotiate it in their collective bargaining. So as you just heard the Chief of Belmont talk about residency problems, this hopefully will help some of those problems with the members who are on the job and if and when they could move out. But again, it doesn't guarantee them that it would have to be negotiated. And I'd like to also go on the record and state that the PFM is in favor of House Bill 2673 and also in favor of House Bill 2803. And that's our testimony. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
No, thank you very much for informing us of that. Thank you for your testimony. Chair Brady, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you, Greg, for your testimony.
Okay, members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
That concludes the witnesses who have signed up to testify for our hearing today. Senator Comerford, so again, on my screen, I can only see squares without names. Normally you see a name if you're on visible or visual mute, but if you're on visual mute, to me, you really are mute because I can't even see who you are. So Senator Comerford, you're not here, right? No other legislator is here who's not on the committee, right? Okay. So I'm going to read through the list of numbers of bills that we have before us, and we're going to close these as of 5 p.m. 1 week from today so that we can have time to have written testimony. I'll read them rather quickly so the public is aware of what is being closed in a week. It's H1838, H2557, H2566, H2569, H2576, H2600, H2601, H2602, H2621, H2624, H2649, H2662, H2663, H2665, H2672, H2673, H2686, H2687, H2707, H2727, H2733, H2738, H2748, H2749, H2762, H2766, H2792, H2795, H2801, H2802, H2803, H3864, H3911, H3941, H4093, S1661, S1670, S1672, S1692, S1701, S1702, S1706, S1715, S1716, S1730, S1731, S1739, S1770, S1793, S1794, S1795. There's the list of bills before us that were heard today. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Excuse me, Chair. I believe Brian Telly from Boston 718 was here to testify also. I don't know if he was on the list, but I think he has a couple bills he'd like to speak on.
Okay, I don't think he was on, that's, you know what, we have so few witnesses today that there's no reason not to hear, or is he here?
Yes. he is.
Yes, Representative, I'm here.
Okay, all right, you know, in the future, if we had dozens of witnesses, that might become an issue, but we certainly have time to hear from you on the bills that you're testifying before us.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair and Chair Brady. I would just like to, Local 718 is in support of Senate Bill 1739, House Bill 2665, and we also support 2673 and 2807. And you know, we're in support of those along with the PFFM. And thank you for your time today. And thank you for allowing me to do a short testimony.
Thank you very much. And as you heard, we're accepting written testimony for the next week. So you're certainly welcome to submit written testimony in support as well. Chair Brady?
Okay, thank you so much.
I'm all set, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And anyone from the committee, any questions? Okay, I will again ask if anyone would like to move to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed indicate by saying nay. The ayes have it. The hearing is adjourned. Thank you very much for your attendance. Thanks for your patience in some of these Zoom issues. We got through it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to your staff.
Thank you. Bye now.
Thank you.